Hello everyone, Circeon here. How are you all doing today? Well, here we are, yet again, in another cart bound for Helgen. So, what are we doing today? Well, I've already played as both a heavy armor warrior and a light armor mage, so it seemed only natural to complete the trifecta by playing as an armorless archer. The reason being is that archery's whole gimmick is to attack from a range and never get hit. So what's the point in having any armor? Now, before we get into the rules, I must preface by saying that what I mean by armorless is that my character is not allowed to have an armor score above 0, and not that I'll be running around naked the entire run. Gotta keep in line with YouTube's community guidelines after all. With that little bit of exposition out of the way, let's get into the rules of the run. As stated, rule number 1 is that I'm not allowed to have an armor score above 0, with the only other rule being that any and all damage that I do must come from a bow, except in the instance in which I'm forced to deal damage without one. With the rules out of the way, let's begin. First and foremost, we have to begin by choosing our race. Many of you are probably thinking that I'll be going with a wood elf due to their plus 10 beginning stat to archery. However, that, my dear viewers, is foolishness. Because the true best race we can pick for this playthrough is a Redguard. Not only do they start with a plus 5 to archery, but they also get that same plus 5 to alteration, smithing, and destruction, which are all skills I'll be looking to level up throughout this run. But more on that later. I name myself Shoot First, as that will be the core philosophy of this run, and proceed to make my way through Helgen, swiping the longbows off these dead Imperials, which I won't be using for much longer than the tutorial allows. That's because upon exiting Helgen, I made a mad dash over to Riverwood, only stopping to swipe the Warrior Stone, where I chopped firewood until nightfall for an early chunk of coin from Hod. Immediately after that, I continued my savage sprint over to Whiterun, where I quickly popped into Jorvaskr in order to swipe the free elven bow in Yella's room. This bow does twice the damage of our longbow, so we'll be using it for the foreseeable future. With our new bow in hand, I hitched a ride over to Windhelm in order to begin the Dark Brotherhood questline. Astrid's life is usually on a ticking timer in most of these videos, so it's best to start this questline as soon as possible. While I was in the area, I decided to head over to Winterhold in hopes of securing some destruction training from Feralda. However, I soon found out that she'll only give you destruction training if you pass her little initiation test, which I didn't want to do since I wanted to keep this character's focus on archery, not magic. Luckily, my salvation to this problem was back over in Windhelm, as Woundfirth the Unliving was more than begrudging enough to give me some destruction training. The only issue was it was heckin' expensive. However, problems breed innovation, and the solution to this problem was pickpocketing my money back from Woundfirth after each training session. I eventually hit 30 in destruction, which was fine for now, which got me up to level 4. I put a single perk point into Novice Destruction, with the other 2 being put into the Overdraw perk, boosting our bow's damage by 40%. Before leaving Windhelm to dispose of Grelod, I decided to hit up Ulfric for a chance to join the Stormcloak Rebellion. Just a little insurance policy in case I decided that I didn't want to host the dreaded Peace Council. With all that done, we made our way over to Riverwood, put an arrow between Grelod's eyes, and was invited to play Astrid's little game. Before me sat 3 people. An army deserter, a strong-mouthed mother, and a Khajiit with a list of crimes so long that no parchment roll in all of Cyrodiil could contain every one of them. One of these people had a bounty. Whoever could it be? Astrid was more than pleased with our flagrant disposition of mortal life and gave us a formal invitation to join her guild's ranks, which we had to put on hiatus in order to acquire more arrows, a problem we would have throughout a majority of this playthrough. Luckily, the solution to this issue was simply walking into Solitude and swiping the arrows these two guards were shooting into this target, with a slight exception which we'll get into when the time comes. But for now, I take my newly acquired arrows and make my way towards the Dark Brotherhood sanctuary near Valkreath. Along the way, I made sure to fire upon any wild animal I came across, which got me up to level 6, wherein I put my 2 new perk points into, you guessed it, my archery skills. However, this is where things in my run start to sour. You see, the reason I joined the Dark Brotherhood was to acquire the Shrouded Hood, a piece of armorless clothing which I thought had an archery enchantment on it. However, as it turns out, only the armored versions of the Dark Brotherhood armor have the archery enchantment. The non-armored version has a sneak enchantment. And to top off all this disappointment and annoyance, I was killed by a band of hired thugs not 5 minutes after leaving the Dark Brotherhood sanctuary. Someone was gonna have to pay for this, and it certainly wasn't going to be me. So I took out my aggression on my first 3 Brotherhood contracts before saying adios to the Dark Brotherhood and never speaking to them again. While on our killing spree, we made a quick stop in Windhelm to get a head start on our eventual smithing grind, before speaking to Dravinia the Stonecarver in Kyne's Grove to get our alteration skill up to 30. You may be wondering why I'm getting training in my magic skills, and while the explanation for my training in destruction is a bit more complex, the reason we need training in alteration is to get some much needed magic resistance. We also made a stop in Ironbind Barrow, where my newfound magic resistance did fuck all against Beamjaw, who smoked me many times. But we eventually prevailed and claimed the steel batteraxe of Fiery Souls, which I disenchanted for later use. Our fight against Beamjaw showed me that I was in desperate need of more firepower, so I took a trip over to Arcantham's, where I was totally able to avoid the Falmer without issue and grab the divine scent of this run, Zephyr, a bow with the innate ability to draw arrows 30% faster. However, this too came with its own issue, as we were unable to exit the decrepit Dwemer ruins due to me holding too many Dwemer valuables. The solution to this problem was simply reloading a slightly older save and progressing the main quest line just so I could grab Lydia and put her to work guarding my valuables on my plantation, which I procured by evicting some tax-evading ectoplasmic entities off the property. We then went back to Arcantham's, this time killing the Dwarven Centurion, which netted us some elven arrows, which I had plans on procuring plenty more of. Let me tell y'all how. First thing we do is head back into Solitude and wait until nightfall. Then we stalk the 2 bowmen to their beds, at which point we swipe their steel arrows and replace them with a single elven one. Afterwards, we wait until morn and follow them back out to the archery range, at which point we gleefully watch them produce an infinite amount of elven arrows for us to swipe. This is what many Skyrim players affectionately refer to as shoot duping, and it's what we'll be using to restock on arrows whenever necessary. The only caveat to doing this is that it takes well over half an hour of watching and waiting to produce notable results. But we eventually acquire a bundle of over 500 elven arrows, which should hopefully be enough for my plans moving forwards. While in Solitude, I decided to fit up my character with some appropriate clothing, as well as purchase this ring of archery, which I had to sell damn near everything else I had in order to afford. We did some mining and pest control on our way over to Windhelm in order to restock our coffers, which we then spent on a boat ride over to Soulstheim. Our mission here was fourfold. 1. Acquire the Ancient Nord pickaxe in order to start mining Stalrim. 2. Acquire a new weapon from the Draugr in the Raven Rock Mines. 3. Nab the Black Book nestled at the end of the Raven Rock Mines dungeon. And 4. Kill General Foxcarius to disenchant his unique weapon. The first part of this plan was simple, the second part not so much. While I was successfully able to pepper the Overlord Archer, it turns out he didn't drop the weapon I thought he would. So we'd have to get that elsewhere. Nabbing and navigating the Black Book Winds of Change was easy enough, acquiring the boon Lover's Insight for now for the 10% extra damage to male enemies. Lastly was our ransacking of Fort Frostmoth in order to dispatch of Foxcarius. And honestly, I don't think I would have been able to do it had it not been for this cheese spot I accidentally found, which allowed me to pepper the Ashbond and Carius with little issue. The General did get the better of us once, but we bounced right back and disenchanted his champion's cudgel for the Chaos enchantment. I then decided to do just 2 more things while in Soulstheim before leaving, which was mining up all the Stalrim located behind White Ridge Barrow and acquiring the Bend Whale Shout for later usage. With our time in Soulstheim now over, at least for the moment, I made my way over to Labyrinthian near Morthal and moseyed my way down to the last Falkeek in order to acquire the weapon I thought I could get on Soulstheim. And it's held by this Draugr Overlord who killed me so many times that I decided to put it into a montage. You may be wondering why I put myself through all that pain just to get a stinking bow. Well, that's because it is by far the strongest bow available to us until smithing gets involved, which becomes even better once we put that fiery soul trap enchantment on it that we got from the SBOFS. With this, we can now begin soul trapping all the unfortunate critters we come across on our way to Riften, as our journey on Soulstheim shot us straight up to level 15, which meant we can now begin the quest Unfathomable Depths. Like always, we park our horse on the balcony of a Vagencell in order to make transporting all the Dwemer smeltables, those being the large decorative and non-decorative Dwemer struts, large and small Dwemer plate metal, solid Dwemer metal, and bent Dwemer scrap metal back to my base even easier. Upon reaching the end of these ruins, we return the Dwemer Lexicon and acquire the boon Ancient Knowledge, which hastens blacksmithing experience by 15%. And on the topic of boons, I think it's about time we acquire another one. Returning to Riften, we can talk to Dinya Balu to begin the Mara's Champion quest line, which leads us over to Iverstead, where we tell Clemic to nut up before climbing the 7,000 steps and meeting the Greybeards, which in turn progresses both the main and Dragonborn quest lines. We then storm our way into the many Dwemer ruins ruins dotted along Skyrim whilst on our way over to Markarth in order to help Calcemo warm Feline's bed. We tried swiping his Dwemer smeltables afterwards, but he was one step ahead of us this time and had installed some infodwemer lasers into his museum, which landed us in prison. One prison break and assassination later, we were free to continue pillaging Dwemer ruins to our heart's content. This net us some ebony arrows, which we, of course, shoot-duped over in solitude. While marveling at my funny number of arrows, I remembered another useful boon I could acquire back over in Markarth. So I sprinted back over there and broke into the Temple of Dibella's inner sanctum to start the Dibella's Champion quest. Due to this fortunate timing, I was able to save both the Symbol of Dibella and exercise some more ectoplasmic entities, acquiring the Agent of Mara and Agent of Dibella boons within only minutes of each other. With our little boom bash over and done with, we made our way back over to Soulstheim to begin the Dragonborn questline. However, we'd only be beginning this questline and nothing more. This is because immediately after our meeting with Mirak, we can use the Bend Will Shout we nabbed earlier on the Windstone just outside the Skull Village, freeing the Skull and allowing us to start the quest, A New Source of Stalrim. After rescuing Daor's brother from a Thalmor BDSM dungeon, we can make our way over to their shipyard and deal with the main Thalmor head honcho. I said, and deal with the main Thalmor head honcho. With Ancarion dead, we can return to the Skull Village and learn the secrets of smithing Stalrim. However, we would need the Ebony Smithing perk in order to do that, which meant it was time for a smithing montage. Wow, I did way better than I did last time. Mayhaps we'll have that same luck with enchanting. Nope, still can't reach 100 in one go. Got pretty close though. But for those of you who watch these videos, you know exactly where this is going. It's time for a literary adventure. Right after we take our well-deserved level up straight to 32 and switching out Lover's Insight for Scholar's Insight in order to get 2 skill points from reading skill books instead of 1. Starting in Winterhold, we can find the books Breathing Water Hiding in a Basket in Crownder's house, Mystery of Talara Volume 3 on the top floor of Berna's Oddments, and Twin Secrets Hiding in a Basket in the Jarl's house. In Windhelm, we can find a hypothetical treachery behind a bookcase of the Arentino residence. We can find reality and other falsehoods within the basement of Snowshot Farm just outside Riften, and can find Enchanter's Primer within Carlotta's house in Whiterun. In Dawnstar, we can find response to Barrow's speech within the Ironbreaker mine, catalog of weapon enchantments within the War Room of the Jarl's house, and the Art of War Magic on the opposite room's balcony. The book Sithis can be found within the Dark Brotherhood Sanctuary near Falkreath, along with the books A Tragedy in Black and Horror of Castle Zir, located within the Glenmoral Coven. We can find Daughter of the Nibbin sitting on a table within Understone Keep in Markarth. And finally, the book The Lunar Lorcan can be found in the Solitude Lighthouse. However, it was here where I discovered that my alteration skill was bugged for some reason, which forced me to power level my way up to 45 the natural way. And by that, I mean spamming Mage Light at Alicif's stupid face for 30 straight minutes. However, my dear viewers, this was not the end of my literary adventure, as I had saved the best book for last, the Ogma Infinium. To acquire this book, I would have to slightly sequence break the main questline by speaking to Septimus Cygnus, and acquiring his Dremmer Sphere and Lexicon. After that, we would have to make our way down to Blackreach, which was notable for two reasons. The first being that I found some Daedric arrows on this fallen Dwarven Centurion, and the second being that I went through the incredibly boring and tedious process of collecting 30 samples of Crimson Nirnroot. After solving the Dwemer puzzle and retrieving both the inscribed lexicon and elder scroll, I made my way over to Serethi Farm to speak with Avrasa Serethi, who gave me the boom Sindirion Serendipity, which gave me a 25% chance to duplicate any potion I crafted. Following that, we made our way back over to Septimus, who realized he needed the blood of all the elves Todd Howard decreed were important in order to open the Dwemer Vault, which we easily acquired by assaulting a few mage forts. With the blood acquired, Septimus was finally able to realize his greatest dream before being deleted out of existence by Hermaeus Mora, Daedric Prince of Kill Sniping. With the Ogma Infinium now in hand, we can read the chapter Path of Magic to increase all our magic skills by 5 points, which brought our destruction and alteration skills up to 60 and 50 respectively, which is exactly where I wanted them. With our literary adventure now at an end, I acquired the skill Extra Effect and Frost Enchanter from the Enchanting Tree, Augmented Frost level 2 from the Destruction Tree, and Magic Resistance level 2 from the Alteration Tree. And now it was finally time to put my grand plan into motion. The plan I had been slowly working towards throughout this entire adventure. And it all began with alchemy. So I quickly enchanted some alchemy gear and grabbed all the ingredients I'd been hoarding up until this point and got to work bumping up my alchemy skill. With 100 alchemy achieved, I could slip straight into the next phase of my plan, which was the incredibly simple task of acquiring over 90 filled Grand Soul Gems. So I traveled back over to Soulstheim with my many potions in hand and began shop restocking Fethis Alor's wares. For those of you out of the loop, shop restocking is when you open a vendor's inventory, browse through their wares, and when you're done, saving the game before attacking them and reloading your save. This will immediately restock a vendor's inventory, allowing you to continue purchasing and selling items to your heart's content. However, about 3/4 of our way through this, Fethis had enough and locked us into a permanent purgatory. At least it would have been permanent had we not had the ability to load in a prior save. After that, I decided to purchase the remainder of my soul gems from Master Neloth and his apprentice, which didn't take longer than 20 or so minutes. With our massive supply of filled Grand Soul Gems now acquired, we could head back over to our plantation and use them to start our end phase. Or at least, that's what I would have done had it not been for my slumber on Soulstheim deleting my barrel full of gear, which is a problem that only occurs to these two barrels and none other. The solution to this issue was simply heading over to Radiant Raiment and shop restocking Andari's stock until we acquired 20 gloves and 20 cowls. The rings and neckline were easy enough to forge with all the gold we no longer had any use for. But with that done, we could now finally begin this character's end phase by using an enchanting loop to create some absolutely absurd crafting gear and become an all-powerful goddess. The loop went as follows. First, don your crafting gear. Next, brew a potion of Fortify Enchanting. Then, drink said potion before enchanting a new set of alchemy gear. Finally, don the new set of crafting gear and repeat this process until you get your desired results. However, I never got my desired results. Instead, I discovered that there was a hard cap to the Fortify Alchemy enchantment after a literal hour of bashing my head against a wall, wondering why it never went above 29%. If you hadn't figured it out by now, my plan was to do this loop 20 times over with all my gear and soul gems. But thanks to Mr. It Just Works, that plan was now completely off the table. So I submitted to donning my less than ideal crafting armor and brewed up some potions of Fortify Smithing and Enchanting, which I then drank before forging, improving, and enchanting all my gear. And here are the results. Both Zephyr and my Stalrim bow do over 500 damage, which is thanks to me doing 198% more archery damage. My pickpocketing success is now 47% greater, I have an extra 72 points of health, and I now resist 46% of magicka damage, along with 54% of both fire and frost damage. However, the disappointment of not being able to see the true fruits of my labor took its toll on me, and I decided to put the game down and pick it back up in the morning. Which I'm so glad I did, because it led to me discovering that I hadn't even begun to reach the true pinnacle of power my character could obtain. Let me explain. This 29% hard cap had been known about for a while, and whenever someone tries to force a limit on something, people will innovate, and that's where my salvation lies. Thanks to this Skyrim fandom page, I learned of a method to give myself that bit more juice I was looking for. To begin, we had to hop inside Right Ridge Barrow in Soulstheim in order to nab the black book hidden within. By first selecting the boon Seeker of Shadows, we can break the hard cap on our potion effects and brew up some even stronger potions of Fortify Smithing and Enchanting. We then head back into the book to acquire Seeker of Might before drinking our Fortify Smithing potion and crafting and improving our weapons. We then go back into the book yet again to grab Seeker of Sorcery before slugging down our Fortify Enchanting potions and enchanting all our gear yet again. And here are the brand new results. My Stalrim bow named Frostbite does 833 points of damage along with 180 chaos damage and 51 frost damage. And Zephyr now deals a staggering 783 points of damage, both of which are thanks to me now doing 222% more archery damage. I now have a 53% better chance to pickpocket along with an additional 81 points of health and now resist 52% of magic damage along with 61% of both fire and ice damage. And it's here where I will finally reveal why I wanted that destruction training. You see, Stalrim weapons have a unique property to them, wherein they magnify any frost enchantment placed on them. This includes chaos damage. However, these enchantments can also be boosted by the Augmented Elements perk in your destruction tree. So by taking 2 levels in Augmented Frost as well as the Frost Enchanter perk, we can boost our chaos and frost damage to the levels you see here. And on the topic of these frost perks, it would seem like they also apply to my previous character, Azor's Runt. You see, I had completely neglected this little line of text which stated that this spell did stamina damage, and that meant it was technically a frost spell. It wasn't until I watched a video by the Welsh wizard that I discovered this fact, so I quickly reloaded my save file, set my smithing skill to legendary, and used the black book Waking Dreams to reset my destruction and illusion perks before then reallocating my perks in order to see see what my new max damage was. Here is Elemental Flare before my skill reallocation, and here it is afterwards. As you can see, we went from doing 112 damage to 146 damage. Of course, we have to multiply both of these numbers by 2.2 thanks to the dual casting perk in order to get our max damage output. And here it is. Before, we were doing a max of 246.4 damage, and now we were doing a max of 321.2 damage, which is a whole 74.8 point difference. Just to show y'all how insane this difference truly is, I decided to refight Karstag, and I think the results speak for themselves. Dead in under a minute. Makes you think how strong Azor's Runt could be if she could cast the expert level version of this spell. But that's enough about her. What about Shoot First's power? How strong is she? Well, she can one-shot giants and three-shot most dragons, so I'd say pretty damn strong. And because this video is already long enough as it is, and the fact that I really don't want to script the rest of the main or DLC quest lines, the rest of this video will largely just be a montage of me killing stuff. Hope you enjoy. And there we are, another playthrough done and dusted. On screen now are all the perks I took to reach this point. If you enjoyed the video, feel free to leave a like. And while you're at it, comment down below any future challenges you'd like to see me face. As always, thank you so much for watching. Take care, and have a great rest of your day.
Do you get to the Cloud District very often? Oh, what am I saying? Of course you don't.